Healing from abuse as a mom feels pretty impossible. But as someone who has been there, done that, experienced it, I'm here to tell you that it's not. And today, what we're going to be talking about on the Worthy Of show is the beginner's guide to healing from abuse as a mom. But first off, here is a disclaimer. Everybody's recovery journey is different. And if you are able to get support, get support. If you are able to get therapy, please seek out therapy. Do not tell yourself that it wasn't enough, or that he never hit you and so it's not abuse, or she never threw anything at you so it wasn't abuse. You deserve healing, and you deserve the help that you need in order to recover from that. So do not use this as a reason not to go get the support that you need. This is just the basic first steps to get you started, so that way you can begin to heal on your own journey in your own time and move towards taking your life back and becoming the mom that you desperately want to be. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with step number 1. This is one that I start just about everything off with, and I know that some of y'all are sick of hearing it, but it's really important. You've got to give yourself grace. Even outside of the abuse that we went through and the trauma that we've experienced, giving yourself grace as a mom is really freaking hard. You always feel like you're doing too much or not doing enough. You're failing over here and you're failing over here, and the moment you get over here clean, over here is a disaster, and you feel like no matter what you do, you can't keep up. No matter what you do, you are just not capable of being a good mom. And I'm here to tell you, one, that is complete BS and not true. You are a good mom. And secondly, this is even more difficult considering the fact that our brains have been conditioned to believe that what we went through was our fault and that we are inherently bad. And if we are deserving of that abuse, if we experience that abuse, we must deserve it. And if we deserve it, then we must be inherently bad and inherently broken and continue to punish ourselves even though we are no longer in the abusive relationship. Yeah, that's a lot. But it's really important to recognize this. This is why it's so hard to give yourself grace, but this is why it's even more important to give yourself grace. And when I say give yourself grace, I'm not telling you to give yourself a free pass for every time you mess up, or that you are telling yourself that, oh, it doesn't matter if I do this thing because I'm going to give myself grace later. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Giving yourself grace is giving you the permission to forgive yourself for when you mess up. Giving yourself grace means that you get to take a step back and take a deep breath and say, I'm not a bad mom, I'm human, and I'm gonna work to be better. Everything that I talk about on this show entirely, but especially in today's episode, is going to be centered around grace. Because y'all, we're gonna be diving in deep, and I'm gonna say some things that are probably gonna make you pretty uncomfortable. But it is all centered and rooted in giving yourself grace. Giving yourself grace in motherhood, giving yourself grace in recovery, giving yourself grace in every area of your life. Step number 2 is to understand your brain. This is something that I could literally talk about all day long. What I want you to understand here is that what you went through genuinely changes your brain. Like, I'm not saying that as in it just is something fluffy to say or to make you feel better. No. The abuse that you go through genuinely changes the physical makeup of your brain. Let's say, for example, that you are making yourself dinner and you happen to cut your finger. You get a cut on your finger and it bleeds and it's a mess and you have to go through to repair it, clean it up, and create the environment for it to heal. That's exactly what happens to our brain. Abuse is trauma that changes your brain. It changes how it functions, it changes the chemical makeup, it changes how you react to life, it changes how you react to your kids, it changes how you react to and see yourself. So this is really important to understand, because 9 times out of 10, society loves to tell us that we should have left sooner, we should have seen the red flags, that it's our fault, and if it was really that bad, it would have been taken care of sooner. And what society doesn't understand is that the abuse that you've gone through changed your brain. So not only were you in a not safe situation, not only were you being threatened, but your brain does not know how to safely get you out of the situation. In fact, your brain becomes addicted to the abuser, which makes it even harder for you to leave. I'm not going to go into this super deep here, but down below, if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the show description. If you are listening on the podcast, it is in the show notes. I'm going to link to some podcasts that I've done on that, because they are really important. And I haven't talked about them in a long time. I should probably fix that. I think I'm gonna fix that. It genuinely changes the way your brain functions. And therefore, if you do not create the space for it to heal, it will not heal. For example, if you cut your finger open and then you just continue to go about your day, you are, you're cleaning up after your kids, you are touching all sorts of interesting things that you touch as an adult, you are going to the bathroom, right? Let's be real. You are going about your life, you are going these days. What's gonna happen if you just leave this open cut? Right? Even if you've cleaned up all the blood, you think, oh, we're good to go because it's you know, it's clean. We don't need stitches. We don't need a Band-Aid. We don't got to cover it. We're just going to let it do its thing. And you keep moving it and it gets stuff in there, right? It's going to get infected and it's going to get worse. And it's going to continue to get worse until one, it causes you to have an infection in your blood and your whole body gets affected, or you will have to go to the emergency room because something that would have been a super simple Band-Aid fix has now turned into surgery. That's what happens with our brain. This is why I harp so hard on choosing healing and choosing recovery. Because even though you think that you've tucked it away and you're no longer affected by it, you think that if you just go about your day, that everything's gonna be fine. What's happening is you've wiped off the blood, so it's not gushing anymore, and maybe it stopped bleeding, and so around it is clean. But you're moving it around and you're reopening it up every time it starts to heal. You are getting dirt in it, you're getting germs in it. I picked a really gross metaphor. So sorry, y'all, but we are just gonna roll with it because let's be real, it's accurate. Our brain does the exact same thing. So we have to understand how our brain works now and the process it's going to take in order to heal your brain and get you to a place where it is a scar instead of an open wound. Now, overall, this is what we talk about on the podcast. The entire podcast is dedicated to you doing this. And so absolutely, if you're not subscribed already, shameless plug, subscribe so you can learn how to heal your brain. But even aside from that, read things like The Body Keeps the Score. Trigger warning on that, it is very, very, very intense, and so you may want to save that until you're a little further on your healing journey. It's taken me a long time, like literally over a year, to read it because I have to take breaks in between because it's really intense, but it's still a really good book. Take the time to do some research on how the brain works. Research the brain on trauma. There's not nearly enough research on that, which I find infuriating, but whatever. And like I said, even if you don't listen to the podcasts that I shared below, there are resources in there that you can go and dig through and find some more information on. I think it's really important. I do think that while it is so great to listen to podcasts like this, and heck, like I want you to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe if you're listening on the podcast, but this is just scratching the surface on what's going on in our brain. And I think there is so much power in taking the time to learn how our brain works for ourselves, especially when we are healing from abuse, because there is so much going against us, right? Because we have society coming at us and telling us all the time all the ways that we failed. We have potentially a co-parenting situation where we are having to reopen that wound and we are facing that all the time. And then we have our own self-doubt. We have our own lack of self-worth. We have our own brain who, hey, let's be real, is a complete dick 90% of the time. If we don't take the time to learn how our brain works and how to heal it, we are going to just remain a victim of everything coming at us instead of going, okay, this is coming at me, but I know how to fix it and I can change it and I can rise above because yes, I am strong, I am capable, I am intelligent, and I am worthy, and yes, you can do that. The third thing that I want you to do, and this one's gonna be more difficult, and you remember, you've got to give yourself grace through this, okay? But I want you to become comfortable with calling yourself out and recognizing your triggered inappropriate behavior. We have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable part of apologizing for when we've done wrong. And this is really important, and I'm going to talk about triggers in the next step. But the reason I'm bringing this up first is because before we even step into this place of understanding our triggers, the first thing that we need to do in order to heal the relationship with our kids and heal the relationship with ourselves as moms is to begin to accept responsibility for the harm that we cause. And I know that that's painful to hear, but I also know that you know that it's true. We have to, we want to model for our kids, right? We don't want our kids to grow up not taking responsibility for their behavior. We don't want our kids to not be comfortable accepting when they've done something wrong. And we can tell them that all day long, but if we're doing it ourselves, we're not modeling that behavior. And so when we lash out and we scream at our kids, when we belittle them, when we gaslight them, when we react in ways that we are not proud of, we have to apologize. And not only do we have to apologize, we have to accept full responsibility, because we can't say, I'm sorry I yelled, but if you... I talked about this in last week's podcast episode. It was all about how to stay calm while triggered. And if this comes up, if there's a lot of stuff coming up for you, I really recommend you go and check out that episode. Again, I'll link to that below. We cannot take our emotions and place them on our child. Like I said, I went into this last week, so I'm not going to go super deep into it now. But we cannot place the responsibility of our emotional well-being on our kids. We cannot tell our 5, 6, 7, even 16, 17-year-old child that it's their fault that we feel a certain way. Because no one has the ability to make you feel anything. It's an active choice that you make. And I know that's hard to hear, but bear with me here. When you were in the abusive relationship, what did you hear all the time? Well, if you didn't make me so mad, I wouldn't have done that. Well, if you just would have said yes, it wouldn't have been so bad. Well, if you just wouldn't have argued. Well, if you weren't such a prude. Well, if you, all of this, and putting it back on you. Why do you think that the abuse is your fault to begin with? Because it was shoved down your throat. And I am not saying that you are doing this to your kids on purpose, the way that the abuser was. But what I'm saying is that we have to be really careful to not pass down this cycle. We need to be very aware and take responsibility so we do not continue to pass down this cycle. Being a cycle breaker is very important to me. Heck, I even created a whole mini course about it because I am so passionate about it. The abusive relationship epidemic is a massive societal problem, and it needs to be changed on a massive societal, governmental, legal level. It's sickening, and it is angering, the things that people get away with. But the reason I share this is because while that absolutely needs to happen, and I desperately want that to happen, I do not think that I will see change in my lifetime. But I want to do everything I can to ensure that my child sees change in his. So that means that it is up to me to be the change for my child. If we don't want these cycles to continue and we don't want our kids to be victims, we don't want our kids to be abusers, we cannot normalize this behavior. We have to call it out for what it is, take responsibility for it, and change. And I know that that's really hard. I am not victim blaming. I am not saying that this is your fault. I am not saying that you're a bad mom. Give yourself grace. But without awareness, we can't change. And for me, it took some hard reality. It took some hard data for me to realize, holy crap, this is a problem. I have to start with my child. So that way, he starts with his child. And when his child has a child, this cycle will become weaker and weaker, and eventually it will be broken. We have to take responsibility and own our shit so we can say to our kids that we did the best we could to break this cycle. And yes, it is that important. The next step to that is going, okay, well, what's causing me to do these things that I have to own anyway? What is causing me to lash out? What's causing me to yell? What's causing me to withdraw? And that leads into step number 4, which is learning how to manage your triggers. This is really important. I've done lots of podcast episodes on this. I have done events around this. I've created a free workbook that is linked below for you to grab, all about triggers. And it's because we can't call out and recognize what we're not aware of. But also, we can't change until we know what caused it. Because it's great to call yourself out and own your stuff. But if you were just saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to change, and then not changing, that's not helpful. That's actually harmful. And so now that you're taking responsibility, you have to learn how to change and become better and heal and work towards becoming the mom you want to be. And that starts with learning how to manage your triggers. Because you have to recognize why you lash out, why you get so angry so fast, why you withdraw, why you shut down, why you gaslight your kids, why you react the way that you do in any given situation. And even if your reactions don't necessarily match what I have just shared, because that's my problem, these are my problems, let's be real. Whenever a situation comes up with your kids, or really with anybody, but I'm talking to moms, so I focus a lot on the kids. Whenever a situation that comes up with your kids, and you react in a way that you are not proud of, regardless of what that reaction was, You were triggered, and that is a reaction that you need to work towards changing. So then that way you can step back and stop reacting and start responding. So you can get out of that panicked part of your brain and work towards the, okay, I'm going to understand, I'm going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to center myself so I can handle this like the mom that I want to be. And I share the entire framework of how to do this inside Triggered, the ebook that I mentioned. You can grab it below, show description, show notes. It's completely for free, no strings attached. This is something that I am very proud of because it's already helped so many women, and I know that this can help you too. So go and grab it completely free and start getting to work on it, because yes, it is that important. And that brings us to step number 5, which is learning how to set and keep boundaries. This one is very important, but it is the one that I have found with all of the women that I've worked with that women have the most resistance to. And this is because you have to learn how to set and keep boundaries, not only with the people that hurt you, but you got to learn how to set and keep boundaries with your family, set and keep boundaries with your kids, with your spouse, with your friends, and with yourself. And the reason why there is so much resistance, is because we think of boundaries as a wall. We think of boundaries pushing people away, shoving people back, and this stems from so many things from a societal level, but especially when you were in the abusive relationship, you were told that your boundaries, your thoughts, feelings, your emotions, your say in life did not matter. You were not important. And when you tried to communicate boundaries, they got angry. If you tried to enforce your boundaries, you may have even been put in a dangerous situation. So number 1, it's really important for us to learn that we're allowed to set and keep boundaries. You're allowed to, boo. With anybody you want. In fact, you should have some level of boundaries with everybody, including yourself. I mentioned that a lot of us think that boundaries are walls and they're meant to push people away because that's what we've been taught. But really, you already have all of these walls up. You're pushing people away all the time. And chances are you have your kids at arm's length because you don't even believe that you're a good mom and you are scared to screw up. And so you're just going to keep them at arm's length, hoping that they never love you too much, they never connect you too much, so that way when you screw up, you don't let them down that bad. So those walls aren't helping. The boundaries that you set bust through that wall and create a door. And you get to control that door. So now, instead of your kids and your friends and your family trying to scale walls or crawl under walls, not knowing what they're gonna get, not knowing if you're okay with something, not knowing if they are really wanted, there is a door that makes it abundantly clear. You have an open sign and a closed sign. You get to decide who gets what sign. You get to decide how open that door is. You get to decide whether it's wide open or it's closed tight. You get to choose whether you're open or closed. You get to choose who you give a key to. And you also get to choose that if you gave someone a key and they done screwed up, you can change the lock at any given time with no explanation. Because it's your door. And that door leads to the most sacred part of you, which is you. It's access to you. Another way to put it is that boundaries teach people how to treat you. Boundaries are literally the blueprint to how you want to be treated. So whether you are giving that blueprint to your kids, or to your partner, or to your friends, or to your boss, or to your coworkers, you are giving them this blueprint and you are saying, hey, this is exactly how I want to be treated. This is what I'm okay with, and this is not what I'm okay with. But here's the deal. If someone does something that you're not okay with, you're not pushing them away. By enforcing the boundary, they are making the active decision to say, no, I don't want to treat you that way. I want to treat you the way I want to treat you. And by saying, no, that's not how this works, this is the blueprint, they are making the active decision to walk away. Boundaries do not push someone away. Boundaries show you who is willing to walk away. And that's even more painful. And this is really important for us to understand, but I'm not gonna harp on this too much more. I have an ebook that I wrote completely for free that teaches you how to set, communicate, and keep your boundaries. It's that 3-step framework. It's the exact framework that I share with my paying clients, that I've shared in workshops, and this helps. It has helped every single client that I've worked with. It has helped not only myself, but also the women that I talk to on the podcast, the women that I meet in real life. Like, I walk them through this framework and I coach them through it, and this works. And you can get it completely for free, no strings attached. It's down below, show description, show notes. We just got a lot of resources today. They are all down there. Don't forget to go check them out. And step number 6 is one of my favorites, and it's something that I think every single I think every parent, but especially every mom who is in abuse recovery needs to do. And that is to understand your child's brain. And when I say understand your child's brain, I'm not just talking about get to know them as a person, although absolutely that too. Absolutely that too. You should be making time to have one-on-one time and to get to know your child, because right now you might not know them very well. And that's all right. Like, you're not a bad mom if that's you. You've been in survival mode for so long. Don't beat yourself up about that. But when I say understand your child's brain, I'm telling you to go and understand child psychology. Take the time to learn where your child is at developmentally. Learn about how their actual brain works. Learn about how the functioning of the brain impacts their day-to-day behavior. Understand what is going on inside of their head. This is especially important. I mean, there's not really any, everything has an especially attached to it. But if you have a child who is neurodivergent of any kind, who might have ADHD, or sensory processing issues, or might be on the autism spectrum, or any of the above, anything under the neurodivergent umbrella, do research on that. Because that is going to help you when your brain slips into panic mode. Because the thing that no one talks about enough is the fact that our kids trigger us, especially as moms. Kids know how to push all of our buttons. But the abuse, let me take a step back. Abuse stems from emotional immaturity. And children are emotionally immature. And so their behavior can mirror the abuser's behavior, because it is developmentally appropriate for a child to lie about eating the cookie dough even though it's all over their face. It is not developmentally appropriate for a grown adult to lie to you when it's like all the proof is right in front of them and they still continue to lie, right? Two very different developmental stages, but same basic idea. And the reason I bring this up is because your brain is going to see that as a threat. Your brain's going to go, see, they're lying to you again. They're lying to you, and you know that they're lying, and you are not going to raise an abuser, and you snap and you freak out because your brain thinks of them as an immediate threat. But when you take a step back and you understand that they are acting in a developmentally appropriate way, you can respond to the behavior instead of reacting to the behavior. But that only comes with the understanding of where their brain is at and why they are doing what they're doing. It is not appropriate for you to lash out and scream and yell and have a triggered response. It is appropriate for you to say, hey dude, I see the cookie dough on your face. Don't lie to me. I can see it. It's right there. And if you are not going to tell me the truth, I don't think we're going to be doing cookies for a while, because this was not okay. Or whatever works for you and your family, right? Understanding how your child's brain works is the key to having the relationship that you want. And I think this would change so many families' lives if they took the time to do this. But I really do believe that as survivors, we have to give our brain the understanding and the proof that our children are not the same as the person who hurt us. And that can be a lot harder than we want to admit. That is so important. Do not skip it. I do have some book recommendations that are really great reads. They're easy reads and they give you a lot of information in not a lot of time, and it's easy to understand as well. And I will actually, I'm going to link to them on my resources page on the website, which I will link to below. We just have so many resources all over the place today. So don't forget to go and check them all out. And lastly, the thing that I want you to do is I want you to create a safe space for you to process through your feelings. This safe space could be a therapist. This safe space could be a trusted friend. It could be a journal. It could be a Facebook group. It could be a video diary. Whatever it is, I want you to have that space for you to process your thoughts. Because when you're trying to heal, all of your thoughts are swirling around in your head. And you've got all of them. You're trying to figure out what's for dinner. You're trying to figure out why you screamed at your kid. You're trying to figure out why everything bad happened to you. And you can't figure out why the washing machine isn't working. And you're not figuring out, like, all of this stuff is happening all at once. You can't think of one thing. When you have a place to store your thoughts and you get all of this stuff out, it becomes a lot easier to process and heal from one thing at a time. I am a huge fan of journaling. Journaling has absolutely changed my life. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. I've written a journal, which is Worthy of Recovery. It's a 30-day journal for survivors. if that is something you're interested in. It's guided, it's great. I'm really proud of it. You can check that out down below in the description as well. But even if you just want to start journaling your thoughts every day, start by journaling around 5 things that you did today that you're proud of. Start just by brain dumping whatever's on your mind. Whatever works for you. I really recommend journaling because pen to paper is just, it's pure magic. It's literally magic. But if you're not a journaler, find a way to get your thoughts to a safe space. If you have the access to a therapist, I said it already, but please go grab that access. I don't want you to see what you believe to be not a big deal as a reason for you not to go get help. So I'm not going to stay on this soapbox for long. I've already talked forever. But I want you to feel comfortable going and getting that help if it's available to you. If you are able to check with your insurance, maybe you can get a counselor. Whatever that is, have a place, a safe space to store your thoughts. Have a place to process and let all this stuff out of your brain. Because if you leave it all in, eventually it's going to explode. And it is so much easier to process an explosion once you've had a chance to manage some of your thoughts and your feelings around things than to have an explosion and then go, how am I supposed to clean up this mess? So I know that today's podcast episode got really deep, and I really hope that something in it resonated with you. I hope that this helps you to get started on your journey towards healing and recovery. And I want you to know that you are worthy and you are deserving of healing. You are worthy and deserving of love. You are worthy and deserving of being the mom that you are desperate to become. You can be her. You can be her. It's not going to be easy, and it's not fair, but you can do it. You've got this, mama. I believe in you.